Welcome, I'm Ken Cameron from musictechstudent.co.uk. In this session, we're going to look further at assessment. So just over a week ago, I released a kind of promo video asking you guys if you were interested in an assessment and reporting course using Google Classrooms. We've had a massive response. Currently we're up to 57 votes for it, and we've decided that this course will definitely go ahead. So we've started planning, we've started developing, and I'm going to try and do weekly updates to show you where I'm at. So starting next week, I will start delivering a few of the videos. I'm expecting it to be a course of probably no more than 10 lessons, just kind of show you how to build a music tech classroom in Google Classrooms and show you how kind of the system works. But as we go through, we just want to look at what's important to actually having a full assessment system. And that's what today is about. And if you have comments, you can leave them below. If you like this content, you want to see more, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. All your support really helps. So the first thing we're going to look at then is an assessment system for music technology has to be able to store and manage lots of data. You also have to be able to use reporting analysis, and you also have to be consistent and show that students are progressing in some way. Before we go into that, let me just show you the course and what was happening last week. So if we just head on over to Music Tech Student, let me just flick to the browser. So this is obviously Music Tech Student. If you're not subscribed yet, it's at a low price of $9.90 at the minute. However, this course will only be available to teacher subscriptions, obviously, because it is for teachers. So that's how you're going to get access to this course. Now, last week I posted up a blog post for Google Classroom just to see if you guys were interested. So if you haven't seen this, have a little look and see what you think. And then we add the votes to the roadmap. So if you're not sure where the roadmap is, you can come to this main page, scroll all the way to the bottom, and we have the roadmap here. So when you click on the roadmap, you see what we're planning to do for next year, and you can also see the previous 2 or 3 years as well, which is quite useful. So you can see the assessment reporting, which is this one here, is now up to 57 votes, and we've got the go ahead, and it's gonna happen. But if you want to vote on any other courses, if you want to say, look, I really need this built, and you want to send me an email, that's absolutely fine. You can get in touch, and I will add your vote to the list. You can see there's a few here with just the one vote. Pretty much all of our funding now has mostly been assigned, but we won't guarantee most of these assignments until the 15th of August. So if there is something you want, vote before the 15th of August and we'll see about adding it. We tend to try and do 10 courses a year, and then we have a stretch goal. And last year, I think we made 8 courses in our stretch goal. So as you can see, there's loads and loads of courses that probably won't get built just yet. But we'll try our best, and you can see what we built last year. So 2018-19, absolutely loads of courses went on, and we hit the stretch goal. We did 3 on the stretch goal last year. The year before, we did well over 20 courses. It was fantastic. So if you're interested in any of this and you want to vote and you want to suggest courses, or if you even want to deliver courses, get in touch. It'd be great to hear from you. So without further ado, let's have a look at assessment and reporting and what's important. So we've called this the 5 pillars of assessment. Let me just load this up here. So every system, even the one that we built last time, so the last system we built, which was probably 2013, 2014 for the old specification, was built on Microsoft's Excel and using mail merge. So the idea was that we could collect this information and then we could ping out emails to the students and to parents and to whoever else needed them. Collecting the information, so as the students handed the work in, it would have to go into a folder, and you'd have these massive folder systems, and it really got bogged down really quickly. So the idea was there, but unfortunately it just got bogged down too quickly. But not much has changed since that time. So ultimately we have these 5 pillars. So the first one is data. We have to collect all this data on individual students. We have to store it, and we have to look at it, reflect on it, and give feedback. So once we've got the data, we then look at the progress that a student is making. And this doesn't always have to be positive progress. If you're seeing that a student is making negative progress, it gives you a really good point to kind of analyze this and say, right, come on, we need to intervene now and we need to put some strategies in place. The next part of that, after you've kind of worked out the data and you've worked out whether the student is progressing, is reporting. Now, throughout the year, you can have parents' evenings, you can have consultations with parents, you're going to have written reports that you have to give out, and you'll also have lots of people involved in that process. Parents being number one, but the student is another one. Your line manager, and anyone else that teaches the subject. So lots of stuff has to happen with reporting, and if you're not keeping it in one place and being able to reference really quickly, that gets out of hand. And that was one of the biggest problems with the Excel, is referencing. If someone asked me for a piece of information and said, look, why has that person only got 10%, or why has that person not done very well, why has that student not done very well, it then took me a little bit of time to kind of find that evidence and go, oh God, I can't remember because that was a year ago. So this is what we're aiming for. Hold on a sec. Sorry, just had to clear the throat. So this is what we're aiming for, is to be able to, at a moment's notice, if someone like your line manager or head of the school or a parent or a support manager asks you for information, you want to be able to give it to them as quickly as possible. And in most cases, you want to give them access to that data. Now, if they're in your system or if they're a parent of the student, using Google Classrooms is really easy to do that, which is fantastic. The next part of this process is analysis. Being able to have complete and utter analysis. And it's fine when you start a course, the first month or two, the analysis is really easy. It comes in and you've got 2 or 3 bits to kind of look at. And you can put it into your spreadsheet and you can kind of work with it and go, oh, great. But as time goes by, as that data evolves and you get 20, 30 pieces of data, the analysis becomes a lot harder to kind of achieve. And once again, this is where Google Classroom really comes in useful, because it's got tools that allow you to put all of that analysis together. So you can look at class averages, you can look at assignment averages, you can look at a student's progress, and it's amazing. And then finally, consistency. So having everything in one place will allow you to be consistent. But the biggest problem with the Excel version was there was no timestamping. So I could write that information in whenever I wanted to. Giving feedback was okay, but it was a bit of a mission. But it could be fudged a lot, whereas with a timestamp system like Google Classroom, everything goes through the system, everything kind of hits that timestamp, and you can kind of look back through it. So these are the pillars. Let's break this down a little bit further. So firstly, when it comes to having recorded data, what kind of stuff are we looking at here? So firstly, you need to be able to set regular assignments really easily and then be able to mark them really easily. That's kind of 101 of any assessment system. I want to give work out and I want to be able to mark it. And I want all that to be in one place. So the instructions for the assessment and all of the required criteria, along with the marking, should be in one place. And that helps later on when you're trying to put it all together. The next thing, which music tech in particular really struggles with, is storing data. So we're going to store data as audio, video, text, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And if you try and put that into folder systems, you have to have things that open it. So a good system will be able to have your assignment, the grades that you've given, and the students' upload files all in one place, so you can quickly reference. The next thing is, if you need to edit something, view something, or review it. So same again, if you need to edit something because it's not quite right, you can just quickly edit it. And once again, all in one place is the big key here with any kind of data recording. So hand-ins, grades, and then finally comments. And the good thing about Google Classroom, it allows you to comment to a specific assignment. So a year later, after you've made that comment and you go, why have you given this to this person? You go, I really can't remember. You can click on that assignment, you can click on that student, and you can go down and you can have a look at the comments. And what I say to all my students is, you're not allowed to email me. Okay, I don't want to see one single email from you in my folder. You have to use the Google Classroom commenting system. If you want to talk to me about an assignment, you have to use the commenting system. And that's great because then it puts it in, it timestamps it, and it can see how you responded to that. And it gives you a really nice, traceable content to kind of follow. The final and the biggest thing, especially with the new European Data Protection Act, is how you store your data privately and securely, because in most instances you're going to have the student's full name, you're going to know where they are, you're going to know what year they are, and you're going to have all of their work. That does, using the old system of the Excel, that does cause massive amounts of privacy and security issues. And the other thing about privacy and security is you don't want students to be able to share files. Especially in music tech, that's an absolute no-no. So if you're getting to upload to Google Classroom, it's completely private. They don't get to see each other's files unless you want them to, of course. So it's completely private, which is absolutely amazing. So in one bound, this system does take care of all of the recording of data, which is going to be one of the biggest issues of any system. So the next thing we need to look at then is how we track students' progress. So some of the important things about tracking is making sure the student hands in the work and it gets marked almost instantly. You cannot leave marking for months on end. I tend to have this kind of 2-week turnaround with marking. But in that vein, if you're going to set an assignment every week, you need to make sure that you make it easy for yourself to mark. So in my system that I'm going to show you, I've got this nice little system where I can either just give them a number based out of 1 to 100 or 1 to 9 or 1 to 5 or whatever, and then that will go towards a percentage. But if they say to you, hey, why did I get that mark? There's further evidence there, right? If you look at the grade boundaries, this is why you got it in. And that's a great way of you being able to give feedback and give a mark very swiftly. The next thing and the important thing about any system is making sure a student hits a deadline. And I said this in past week, if a student doesn't hit a deadline, they're going to cause you lots of trouble later on. So what I get my students into the habit of is meeting the deadline and being penalized if they are even an hour late with it. And it's great, and it gets into I'm gonna give a slotted time at this particular moment to mark all of your work. If your work isn't there, the highest mark it's going to get is this. If it's 2 days late, the highest mark it's going to get is this. And every time it gets reduced until, if it's more, this year I gave them a week, but if I'm honest, I'm probably not going to give them any more than 2 days. So just say, look, if it's not in by this point, the grade's going to be 0 and I'm not interested anymore, unless there are extenuating circumstances, in which case write a comment, and that takes care of a bit of that as well. The next part is looking at the quality of students' work. So can they hit the deadline firstly, and what's the quality like? Following on from that, can they follow instructions and can they problem solve? And this is useful, having all of the assignments and the grades next to each other is really obvious to see if your instructions are laid out properly and they can follow them. And based on the assessment grid that you're given with Google Classroom, you can look at the class average, so you can actually see if it's your fault that they're not getting it or if it's something deeper with what they're doing, which is absolutely amazing. So next on our list, reporting. So you're going to report so much over the year, and you need to make sure that your reporting is accurate. So throughout the year, if a student misses a deadline or the quality falls below a certain standard, you have to report this information. You have to have evidence to back it up. If you don't back this evidence up as you go, it can cause you loads of problems further on when they take their exams, and maybe that student was predicted an A but they end up with a D. And if you've got no evidence that backs up that they were following that particular path, then you can get into a little bit of trouble with that. So having a system that can monitor any failings, so if they miss a deadline, you put in that negative event or that negative whatever, and you make sure it's reported. And we use Sims for this, so there is unfortunately no way of doing this inside of Google Classroom, but open up the school's platform of Sims and enter the data, and it tends to go in there okay. Also, if a student is exceeding expectations, you need to write that up as well. Make sure that goes into Sims. And once again, all of this will be tracked in Google Classroom, but you need to upload this information as it happens. The next thing that happens all the time throughout the year, and it will happen unexpectedly, is someone like a line manager or a parent of a student, or even a student, will say, so why have I got that? That was 10 months ago. How can I remember that? But if you keep your system up to date, this will just go in and it'll be absolutely fine. You say, okay, let's look back at that. And if they've written comments and you've written comments, so if they miss a piece of work, make sure you write a comment and say, look, and I copy and paste this statement for anyone that misses the work. I just say, this work is now late. you've got 0, boom. And it timestamps my comment against the deadline comment, which is absolutely amazing. And if the student doesn't respond to that, it's like, well, you never told me, or if they have responded to it, you can be a bit more, you can give them a bit more of a suitable response. The next one is termly and yearly written parents' reports. Now, I base all of my reports on their overall percentage. So as long as you are putting the grades in as a number, Google Classroom will churn it out as a percentage, which is absolutely amazing. And then you can work out a grade boundary based on that percentage. And that's been really successful. And you can move that grade boundary based on your cohort or based on the expected grade boundaries for that particular year. And then finally, parents' evening. Having a reporting system where you can take your laptop into a parents' evening, you can pull up that student and you can show the data is really important. The good thing about Google Classroom is it doesn't infringe on any of the privacy acts. So when I call up a name in Google Classroom, all they can see is a name. There's no pictures, there's no big statements. So no other student gets to see that, or no other parent, as you're rotating through the system, gets to see that. But you have that information and you can quickly turn your laptop around and show the parent that information. So the reporting for Google Classroom does cover every single aspect, which is amazing as well. And we're going to show you how to use that. So the analysis, pretty much the same. It's just making sure the evidence is collected, making sure that you're able to look at it in different ways, and ways in which Google Classroom allows you to look at that evidence. So you can see whole class overviews, you can see individual student overviews, you can see percentage overviews for a particular student in a year, you can see percentage overviews for class average on an assignment, and then finally you get evidence that a student has missed a particular assignment or how many they've missed as a massive overview. So the analysis also gets covered and you don't have to do any extra steps. Google Classroom and Google Sheets actually takes care of all of this for you, and it updates it as you go. As you submit these marks, it updates the spreadsheet. So it takes out a whole bunch of double work. The only bit of double working I ever have to do is transferring my Google Sheet information onto Sims. But in terms of any other data, it all stays in one place and I only ever have to do it once. It's only when Sims gets involved that you have to do this, which is our school's assessment and reporting system. And this is just purely because Sims doesn't handle spreadsheet information very well, or at least at my school it doesn't. Once we get that solved, I'm literally going to be able to just do it in one place and then move it forward, which is great. So our final bit, before I let you guys go, and I'm sorry this has gone on for a little bit too long, is consistency. So transparency is the key. With any assessment and reporting system, you want to make sure that if someone wants to see a bit of information, they can. There's no hidden aspects. If a student wants to see it, if a parent wants to see it, they can. It needs to be viewable, and it needs to be able to see that what you're saying is true and accurate. So you try to keep parents in the loop. Now in some schools, you can actually turn on the Guardian setting in Google Classroom, which is great. So when a student gets an assignment, the parent gets it as well. When a student gets a comment, the parent gets it as well, which is absolutely great. We haven't got that turned on in our school, which is a bit of a shame, because if it was, the Guardian would have been involved at all stages without me having to write an extra report. Another good thing, when you're teaching a subject and maybe one year you haven't done so well, and your line manager or the head of the school comes knocking on your door and says, look, I want to see your scheme of work and I want to see your lesson plans. Not convinced you're doing a great job. Well, the good thing about Google Classroom is every assignment is a lesson plan and your scheme of work is the blocks. So you can actually put them into a block and you can show every single part of your lesson plan or lesson plans and how you've kind of worked through the specification along with your scheme of work, which is amazing. And then finally, for consistency purposes, timestamp all work, which is done instantly, comments and marking, keep them up to date. So that's pretty much it. That's what we're aiming to achieve for this particular course. If you have any other feedback and you want to give your views of anything we've missed, that'd be great to hear from you. And once again, I'm going to start delivering the first 1 or 2 videos next lesson. They are only available to Music Tech student teacher subscription, so just be very aware of that. Is something that's only going to be available to that particular subscription. But you're going to get access to all of the lessons. So that'll be about 10 lessons showing you how to set up Google Classroom, how to work through it, and how I've done it for the past couple of years. And then the second course, I'm going to start putting all of my lesson plans, all of my scheme of work onto it, and that's going to take a little bit longer. And the good thing about my scheme of work is you can copy and paste them initially, but then you can upload your own stuff and you can adapt them as necessary. So if you've got your own things that maybe work better, you can use them. And it really doesn't matter. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you like what we're delivering here on our YouTube channel, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, give us a comment if there's anything you want to see, and I'll see you next week when we do a quick review of how the course is going.